Today I wanted to talk about the word Vedana, usually translated as feeling, and in particular to explain a couple of misunderstandings that are most commonly made about this word and what it means. Because this is really one of the most commonly misunderstood aspects of the Buddha's teaching. So first, to just give a basic introduction, Vedana, or feeling, is part of the 5 aggregates of body and mind. We have Rupa, which is the body, the physical matter of our body. Then there is the mind, and the mind is made up of Vedana, feeling. Sanya, which is the memory, which is not meant in the exact same way as we traditionally understand memory, as in the ability to remember things that happened in the past, but more the whole faculty of recognition. What makes you recognize that an object that you see is a cup, or that it's a book, or that it's a person. We call this, the closest word is memory. Sometimes it's called perception. So we have feeling, memory, sankara, which is intention for thinking, intention for speaking, and intention for acting. And we have the vijnana, which is essentially consciousness, whatever knows, the thing that knows sounds, the thing that knows smells, the thing that knows thoughts. So the idea is not to open up in detail all of the 5 aggregates here. I just want to mention all of them to make it more complete and to put in context the point about Vedana. What is Vedana, this thing that is translated as feeling? What do we mean by feeling? We can understand it pretty easily, most of us, in a general sense. Like if I just ask you, so how do you feel today? How do you feel right now? Is it positive or negative? Are you okay? Are you not okay? Are you stressed, worried, anxious? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling bad? That would be the most basic, simplistic way of talking about feeling, Vedana. But when we're talking about it in Dhamma, we're not just talking about how we would use the word feeling in everyday language. We're really referring to something that's a bit more fundamental, which is that any sight that touches our eyes, any sound that touches our ear, any sensation we feel on the body, any smell, any idea, any taste, basically anything we can sense, is always felt as either being agreeable, being disagreeable, or being neither agreeable nor disagreeable. But mostly there's always going to be either a plus or minus somewhere. So whatever is sensed is felt as either agreeable or disagreeable, and this is feeling. This is Vedana, this capacity or this faculty of feeling. So some of the ways in which Vedana is misunderstood. One misunderstanding is that it's basically sensations on the body, that when we feel pain or we feel pleasant sensations, that's feeling, that's Vedana. So this is quite incorrect. Vedana is mental. Vedana belongs to the mind. The body in itself doesn't feel anything. There are sensations that arise in the body, and that when the mind receives the data, if you like, of these sensations, there is feeling of agreeable or disagreeable born from there, but that which evaluates them as pleasure or as pain is really only in the mind. The body itself knows nothing at all, feels nothing at all. And even if people kind of understand this point, there is often a lot of emphasis on the body, physical pain and physical pleasure in talking about feeling, while actually this is not really the place to focus. It's relatively easy to detach ourselves from physical pain, but the agreeable and disagreeable feelings that arise from the mind are both more subtle and more difficult to see, but also more powerful. Often they have more power over us. Just for example, anyone who climbs Mount Everest has to endure so much physical discomfort, so much physical hardship, physical pain, but they do so, they're very easily able to override the pull of the physical discomfort for the sake of the idea, the strength of the desire for their aim of getting to the top of Mount Everest, the idea of being somebody who has reached the top of Mount Everest. So an idea is something that often has a lot more power over us than sensation. That's why as well, let's say if we take the example of the ear, there are sounds that are in themselves physically disagreeable to hear. Let's say like the sound of a nail scratching on a blackboard. We don't like to hear that sound. But most of the time, when we have a dislike, a disagreeable feeling that is born from contact at the ear, it's not because of the sound itself, it's because of what the sound means to us. For example, let's say somebody we respect or we admire speaks to us in a tone that shows that they think we are stupid. They needn't even use very strong words for us to become so hurt from this, from hearing what they are saying. But it's not because of the sound of the voice itself, it's because of the idea, it's because of what it means. And that will cause us so much more distress than just like hearing a sound that is physically disagreeable, like nails scratching on a blackboard. So that's the first and the main misunderstanding about Vedana, that it is a physical thing, that it's of the body. Another way in which it's confused with the sensations on the body in a similar kind of way is that the emotions that are born in the mind, that belong to the mind, also cause hormonal reaction in the body, and the body reacts physically. So when there is sadness, the sadness will cause the body to react with a throat tightening, with tears being formed, with the sensation of having the chest being squeezed. So all these are physical reactions, but they're not the emotion itself. And to pay attention to the physical sensation instead of paying attention to how the emotion is born in the mind is paying attention to entirely the wrong place, because the physical sensations are a secondary reaction, and when we look at them, we're not looking at the feeling, we're not seeing the feeling itself, we're not aware of the feeling itself in the mind, we're just aware of the body. So it's really of very little use. And when you have correct mindfulness, when you practice correct mindfulness, then it's quite easy, and it happens quite often, that you can drop the emotion, remove the emotion in the mind, so the mind is completely light and completely free, but that the body is already sent its hormones, so it's still reacting physically. You still have the physical sensation in the body, but inside the mind, the emotion is gone. Another type of misunderstanding that is easy to make is to think that feelings of agreeable and disagreeable are emotions in themselves. So anger is a disagreeable feeling, stress is a disagreeable feeling, joy is a agreeable feeling. But that's not quite accurate either. It would be more accurate to say that all the different range of emotions that we experience, from anxiety, sadness, anger, to laughter and enjoyment, are born from Vedana, born from the feeling of agreeable and disagreeable. That again is born from contact at one of the 6 sense doors. It's like the Vedana itself, the original feeling of agreeable and disagreeable associated with a sound or with a thought or with something we see, is like the spark that can light a flame if it has fuel. The flame being the bigger emotion that is born from there, because let's say when something happens that we find disagreeable, we have contact with what is felt as a disagreeable object. Let's say we walk into a room that we don't know very well and we can't find the light, and it's at night, so we're in the dark and we don't know where we are. This is already felt as disagreeable, but now what happens is that there is fear that arises based on this, born from this disagreeable feeling of being in the dark and not knowing how to get to the light. And the fear is when we resist and we react to this disagreeable object, this darkness, trying to get away from it, the tension of not being able to get away from it, and then exchanged with the great relief, finally light, when you find the light switch. As soon as the object that is felt as disagreeable is gone, then no more fear. So that's why again, it's not really accurate to say that the emotion of fear or of anger is in itself Vedana. It's born from there, but the difference, the distinction to make is that the original thing that is felt as agreeable or disagreeable, this fact of it being felt as agreeable or disagreeable, is always there. We can't prevent it from arising, but we can prevent it, we can stop it from growing into the flame of anger or of fear or of sadness or whatever emotion that would grow from there. If you think about a lighter, how it works, every lighter has fuel and every lighter has a mechanism to make a spark. And when you use the mechanism to make a spark, the spark lights the fuel and creates a flame. But if as soon as the flame starts to appear, you put your hand over the place where the gas is coming out, then the flame has to die. There was the spark, but the flame dies. There's no more flame. And somebody who has always their hand over the place where the gas is coming out, no matter, you can make as many sparks as you like, but it will not create any big flame. So with the practice of correct mindfulness, we can watch our mind to watch where the emotion is born, how is it being formed, and as soon as we catch it, as soon as we see it, we just cut it, we drop it. And actually, even just really being aware of the fact of the emotion arising, not just saying to yourself, oh, angry, angry, or sad, sad, but really having awareness inside of us, the sadness as it is arising. As soon as we become aware of it, it drops away, because now there is no space for sadness to remain. There's only awareness in the mind. There's only the observation in the mind. And the aim is to come as close as possible to being there at the point where the emotion is born, at the place of contact. So it's like having your hand always over the place where the gas is coming out. If you are always there, present at the place of contact, there's no way for any spark of agreeable or disagreeable to be turned into the big emotion of anger or hatred or stress or despair or sensual desire or any kilesa. It's the aim, obviously. It's not something that we can just suddenly do overnight. It's really a practice, and it takes a lot of practice. But that's the aim, and it is possible. So just to give a summary of the main points, covered quite a few points. Vedana is a part of the mind, one of the 5 aggregates of Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, and of course the body, Rupa. It's also quite often misunderstood. People mistake disagreeable Vedana, disagreeable feeling, for being disagreeable physical sensations, pain, while in reality Vedana is really only of the mind. It's the faculty of feeling things as agreeable or disagreeable, whether they come from sensations on the body, the nose, the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the mind. It's also not really accurate to say that emotions like fear or anger or stress or anxiety are in themselves Vedana. It's Vedana that gives birth to these emotions when we desire to get rid of disagreeable objects and we desire to have more of agreeable objects. The more there is, let's say, the desire to get away from a disagreeable object that is a threatening object, then that's when it turns into fear. And so these emotions that are born from Vedana, it's possible to let go of them, to drop them, to cut them off, while it's not possible to prevent Vedana from being there in the first place. And we had the example of the spark and the flame with the lighter to show this, that the Vedana is like the spark that lights the flame of emotion. And it's possible to put your finger over the place where gas comes out in order to stop the emotion from going big, which is what we aim to do when we practice mindfulness correctly, to be aware of the emotion as it is arising in order to be able to drop it, to cut it off.